Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and it's yet another Thursday video. And today I want to talk about a conversation I've been having over on Tumblr with one of my followers and answer the question, are there such a thing as bad ideas? No. Okay. That could be the whole video. No, there are no such thing as bad ideas. But here we are, 30 seconds in, and you want to be here a little longer than that, don't you? So, are there such things as bad ideas? No, there aren't bad ideas. Ideas themselves can't intrinsically be good or bad. They're just ideas. Now, there are overdone ideas and there are poorly executed ideas, but there can't be bad ideas. Now, I talk about this some in one of my writing post-manuscript fiction guides, basically, called 16 Signs Your Book is Not Ready to Be Self-Published and Other Things Authors Should Know. So a lot of people believe they have bad ideas because they see these ideas that are used over and over and over, or they're spending too much time on TV tropes, and they believe that tropes are bad instead of tropes are just tools, and tropes can be just part of your idea. So they get in their heads that their idea is bad because everybody has already done it, or they actually haven't seen it anywhere else, or, you know, it's just always been poorly done before, or you don't have anything new to say about the idea, whatever. And so they get in their head it's a bad idea. No, it's just an idea. And the thing about ideas is, especially if you are a creative person, they're kind of like the parrots at Telegraph Hill in San Francisco. You've never been there? Well, it's not really in the touristy part of San Francisco, so I wouldn't be surprised. Go down near the ferry building. They like to hang out near the ferry building and the Transamerica building too. But what happens is, one of these little parrots, these green and red parrots, comes and they sit on a branch and they make a lot of noise. And this noise attracts another parrot or another idea. And another parrot, until you have an entire flock of parrots hanging out in the trees or along a telephone wire, all making noise at you. And these ideas, they could be anything. And some of them are going to be louder than the others, and some of them are going to be actually workable, and sometimes they're, just ideas that you need to just get out of your head. Okay? And they aren't good, they aren't bad, they're just ideas, and there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them in your head, there's a lot of things to be inspired by out in the world, there's a lot of, so there's no real bad idea. Now, over on X, Twitter, there was a author who was running something called Bad Book Ideas hashtag, and usually it was just him and another a fellow author friend, and they would put out this hashtag Bad Book Ideas, and they put out a title and a summary, and usually the title was just something really punny with a little summary that was also kind of punny to back it up, and a couple other people would sometimes kind of join in the fun. And they weren't really bad book ideas, they were just really punny, funny type of ideas to make you laugh. And sometimes when I looked at them, I went, I don't think this is really a bad idea. I think this could be a really funny book so if you are inspired to write off of this little tiny concept. Like, this could actually be a really fun book with a really marketable, punny title. I mean, I have seen a lot of really kind of punny titles coming out of marketing teams lately in publishing. They're really popular. So, you know, they're not bad ideas. It's just sometimes they might seem a little weird, or they might seem a little silly, or, you know, once again, overdone, or maybe, you know, poor, you know, maybe they're poorly executed. You know, once you get into the manuscript writing stage, you know, but the idea itself could be really good. Sometimes as a writer, especially if you're like me and you write fan fiction, sometimes you'll be writing with this group of characters and you have a lot of ideas. This actually happened to me with the biker werewolves a lot. I had a lot of ideas, and I still have a lot of ideas. Some of them I need to get out of my head, but like, you start writing and you realize that you have to write with these characters stuff that's probably not going to make it into a book, because you have to learn how these characters are going to act and react in certain situations. You have to learn the characterizations of your characters. You know, it's a lot easier with fan fiction because those are built in, but when you're writing original fiction, you have to create them yourselves. We try to pretend we're in control, at least, but you have to learn how these characters are going to act, and like their little funny idiosyncrasies, you know, their little mannerisms and things like that. And sometimes that means you're going to be writing stories and stuff that don't make it into your book. And you might write a few of them, you might write a lot of them. But as you're doing this, and you might be using some really tropey ideas to do it, you're going to be building your world. You're going to be building up the personalities of those characters. And it's not that these little short stories, whatever you're working on, are, you know, bad ideas or anything. It's just that they don't fit into your novel as currently planned. So sometimes it might be, you know, you have a dozen short stories, whether it's fan fiction or original fiction, and each of them have this really great idea, or you've started to create this whole little universe in your head. So each little short story, you start with this idea, and each story you're writing, you start building more and more and more upon the world and the characters and what happened to those characters and their backstories and their personalities, until you can write a full-fledged novel with them being fleshed out, where you have this universe, these ideas of what's going on firmly in your head. Now, okay, so now you've got 12 stories. Well, those stories aren't bad, and they served a very good specific purpose to help you figure out, to flesh out your world, to flesh out your characters. And it doesn't mean they're poorly executed. And, you know, maybe some of those stories can be reworked and edited and put into a short story collection if you know, if they actually fit in with the major timeline. Or other times, you know, they're just going to, you put them off to the side in a drawer and reread them later, because rereading your own work is part of writing. And hey, you wrote it just for you. Entertain yourself with your own writing, and you can, you know, refresh your memory, or, you know, what you were thinking when you were coming up with that, or maybe you need to know the emotional part, or maybe there's a conversation in that story that you want to put into the main story that, you know, you need to transpose over, whatever. So having a lot of ideas is just part of this process. And this happens, say, in advertising agencies, or when, you know, you're pitching some sort of project and you have to come up with stuff right off your top of your head. It's a lot of times you are going to be, as a group, in a room, or with your boss in a room, and you're just going to be throwing ideas out. Everything that comes off the top of your head first, you know, the easy stuff that's on the top of your mind, you know, the low-hanging fruit type of thing, and you start throwing it out, and some of those ideas get written down, some of them get tossed into, you know, they're written on a piece of paper and they're crumpled up and tossed to the floor, or, you know, tossed into a waste picket bin, or, you know, some of the idea, you know, you'll start, maybe you start spider webbing, and you'll the word association, things like that. And this is very, very common in the creative arts, that you have to get these ideas that are low-hanging fruit or tropey or things you've seen already a lot of out of your head in order to get to the ideas that maybe aren't as tropey, or maybe you can find a subversion or a lampshade, or they're not quite as they're out there but not too out there, so the audience might like them, type of thing. You're digging deeper into yourself to get to the ideas that you can be really passionate about. And that's very common. That's, they can block up your creative flow sometimes, these ideas. Sometimes it's just, I really just want to get this out of my head. I really like this idea. I just want to get it out onto a piece of paper or into an electronic document so that I can get to, the idea that I am really, really passionate about, that this idea is kind of in the way and talking over, shut up, that one parrot. Be quiet, parrot. This parrot's talking, and I need you to be quiet so I can listen to this parrot over here. And sometimes you just want to write your silly idea with your silly little characters doing silly little things and having these silly little outcomes, and that's okay. Look, not all writing has to be massively serious all the time. You don't have to have this great message, and if you don't have a great message and you don't know what your message is, that's fine too. A lot of writers, big name writers, have put out books that they like, oh, I wasn't putting a message into this book, and English teachers are writing about, teaching classes about how to analyze literature and talking about symbolism and the metaphors and what they were talking about. If you talk to J.R.R. Tolkien, he didn't have any metaphors in his Lord of the Rings series. The rest of us are going, sure you didn't. You didn't realize you put them there, but you did. And we talk about them in this way because we know about your life, and what you were doing in your life. Both you and Lewis were serving in one of the world wars, and both of you came back, and both of you wrote about it in different ways. Making stories suitable for children and teenagers and adults, type of thing. And so you might not know what you put in there, and different people are going to get different things out of your book, too. You might put something in there, and somebody else who's reading it gets something completely different out of it than what you thought you put in. And it doesn't mean their interpretation is invalid. It just means they have a different interpretation of what they thought you were saying versus what you thought you were saying. And it happens. Because other people are bringing their life experience and the lens they view fiction through to their reading experience, to what you've said. And to them, maybe it's profound, or maybe it's trite, or maybe it's something you've never even thought of, and there it is in your book. And when you're executing ideas, and I've had authors come and go, I don't know what I have to say. And I'm like, you need to write 3, 4, 5, 6 different books. And over time, as you're writing, you might not know what you're saying until, it suddenly occurs to you 5, 6 books later, what common themes are in your writing. What themes constantly come up again over and over and over in your work. It's okay not to know what your great themes is. You just have an idea, and you were trying to get an idea out and express a story, and a theme's kind of a bonus item later on. And your idea wasn't bad. You executed it. Maybe people jived with your execution, maybe they didn't. It's going to take time for you to be able to say, this is valid critique and this is just somebody's opinion. And learning to take valid critique is very difficult. But, that idea you had of, a fantasy story set between three warring factions, and so this faction's going to come help the other faction at the very last minute. That might not be a bad idea. It's just, you have to learn to execute the idea. The idea can't be good and it can't be bad, and you might think, well, I've never seen anybody else do this, and then you write your book and suddenly you're seeing 3 or 4 other people have written a book with the same type of premise, and you're like, but I didn't put that out in the universe or anything, and are they copying me? And it's just like, no, people get inspired. It's like the grand cultural zeitgeist by things going on in popular culture. We've had these great generational changes, or sometimes it just happens that, you were writing this and somebody else had a similar idea and you just didn't know it, and you've both published your idea. It's not that you copied each other, because you were writing at the same time, or they were writing it 2 years ago and it just got published now, and you just published your book that you were writing last year or whatever, and you had no idea their book existed. It's not, it's not because, and maybe that means my idea was a good idea, or maybe not, It's, the idea can't be good. The idea can't be bad. It's just an idea. It's just the beginning building block, the foundation of your story. The rest of your story, the characters, the plot, the conflicts, the setting and everything, that's purely you. You bring your own experiences, you bring your own life to it, you bring your own inspirations. If you gave 10 people that same bad book idea, you're going to get 10 different stories out of that bad book idea, because the idea itself is just, something very, very small and, thin, and everybody has their own idea. It has their own ideas how they're going to build on that core foundational idea and, make it their own. I mean, I have read quite a few the Earth versus Mars versus the Moon science fiction books. They all approached it differently. They all had different names and different factions and different types of main characters. And was it a bad idea? No. Was the execution good? Debatable. I mean, at least one of them has a television show, so somebody liked it. But like, ideas, there's so many of them out there. Yes, you are eventually going to run into a trope, or you're eventually going to run into something that somebody else has already done. Take Harry Potter. Are magical British school story ideas bad? No. Are they overdone? Maybe. Should there be more published? Sure. So part of the 16 signs, and go down to the end to things authors should know, is there is a comic out there called 2 Cakes. And there are 2 cakes in this frame. One is a little 2-tier cake with some strawberries on it. And the other is a 3-tier cake with lots of swirly frosting and like strawberry roses on top. And the first cake guy is like, "Aw, his cake is better than mine." And then somebody else comes along, and they're like, 2 cakes! Okay? So maybe your idea is, something that you've seen out there before. A British school story, magical school story, or Lost in Space, or grand space operas, or a new take on the Wolf Man, or it's a story about robots, like, or cyborgs. We've got Asimov here right next to Martha Wells. So I've got Murderbot right next to some of the original Robot Talks books. Like, And somebody is going to come, and they're going to look at your shelf, and they're going to go, oh, I have been looking for more books of X, Y, and Z. I've been looking for more robot books. I've been looking for more Lost in Space books, which, by the way, is a Robinson-esque book, but I didn't know that until I looked it up. I have been looking for more Portal Fantasy. I have been looking for more magical English stories set at boarding schools. You know, I have been looking for X, Y, and Z, and you have X, Y, and Z, and I am so excited that you have this book with this basic premise idea. You know, somebody out there is going to be happy. I mean, the whole romance genre wouldn't exist if people didn't love familiar, tropey ideas. Okay? And there are 101 variations on, you know, all the different types of romances that there are, from the, you know, executive bad boy romances to the motorcycle bad boy romances to the Navy SEAL bad boy romances to the supernatural bad boy romances. Most of them are bad boy romances, or they like to pretend they're bad boys. I mean, I have 2 series myself, or at least 1 series, another half series. One is a kind of an Arthurian fantasy romance thing where the Knights of the Round Table are now vampires that can turn into wolves, and their wives are witches and can cast magic, and they're protecting the earth from aliens. Okay, you know what? Somebody thought that crazy, wacky idea was good enough to publish, and they made it a romance, so sure, why not? You know, it's a crazy, wacky idea, crazy, wacky, doing silly things, but, you know, somebody thought it was good enough to publish. And the other one is, you know, a basic kind of you have supernatural creatures, like a lot of different were creatures, and the dragon were creature, and the fae and whatever, and they're kind of living out in the open, and it's, you know, just type of supernatural romances between those types of creatures. And there was, she did a bunch of short stories with, she had these god machines that were out in the world type of thing, but that didn't really come up as much in the main romance books. So, you know, people want many variations, basic same ideas, because it's comforting, and, you know, it scratches in a mental itch, you know. So that's why you see people who are like, oh, I like Tolkien and I want more Tolkien, and, you know, you recommend Sanderson and Rothfuss and all that, and, you know, it's not quite the same, but it's probably as close as you're going to get, or Martin, and but because that's what we've got closest to Tolkien, and, you know, you hope they like it, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So our 23 minutes of, can your ideas be bad? The very simple answer is no. And the very long answer is, people like tropey ideas. We wouldn't have a Star Wars EU, we wouldn't have the MCU, and we wouldn't have, you know, the DC expanded universe of comics. So I have a hard time doing that with the movies for DC. If people didn't like, you know, these repetitive, tropey, you know, familiar, comforting ideas, you know, I will read just about any fake dating story between my favorite couples. I love that. That is just something that makes me happy. Okay? So take that as you will. That and Only One Bed. I like Only One Bed too. But so you take your ideas, write them down. If you have to get them out of your head, get them out of your head. And then, you know, keep writing them, build them on each other, put them together like jigsaw puzzles, you know, and if they're not working together, don't force them, type of thing. There are plenty of ideas out there, and none of them are good, and none of them are bad. They're just ideas. And All that matters is what you do with them, and how you execute them, and how you bring your own voice and viewpoint to them. Okay? So take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Stay safe out there. Bless. And, you know, somebody out there wants another book with that basic premise that you've got in your head that you're so excited about, with your silly little characters doing silly little things. Okay? And I will see you in the next video.